Welcome everybody. Thanks for being a part of this Zoom conversation with the creatives behind Two Distant Strangers, an Oscar contender in the live action short film category. I'm Matthew A. Cherry. I'm the writer, director, producer of Oscar-winning short film Hair Love, and animated from last year. And really excited to be here with some of the creatives. And I'm also here with my partner and friend, Karen Toliver. Introduce yourself, Karen.
Hi guys, yeah, welcome. I'm glad to be here. I'm Karen Toliver. I'm one of the producers on Hair Love, and really ran across this short on the site, really, watching a lot of the live action shorts, and very, very excited to have this conversation with the filmmakers. We're sitting with directors Martin Desmond Rowe and Travon Free, and one of the lovely actresses from the short, Zaria. So welcome guys, and we're excited to get into it and have a great conversation about it.
Yeah, it's gonna be really fun. When you're watching hundreds of projects, trying to whip down your list, it's hard to find projects that stand out. And this is definitely one of those projects that I think, given the past year that we've had, the pandemic, there were so many factors that I think made this film hit a little harder than others. And one of the first questions I wanted to ask you guys is could you kind of walk us through a bit of the journey of going to try to make this film? Like, obviously it always starts with an idea, but how did you take that idea and make it real?
You want to take it?
You want me to go first? Okay, yeah. So Travon called me and he said, a 2-line pitch. He's like, the summation of the film. It's a African-American guy, wakes up every day, gets killed by the same cop over and over and over again. I was like, that's an amazing idea. He's like, can we make a short film? Can we get it ready for the Oscars this year? And I was like, and this was June or July. I was like, I don't know. And then the next phone call I had was with a massive tech company out of China. They're like, we really like some of the films you've made in the past. We've got a lot of money. We want to make short films. So I called Travon back. I was like, I think the universe wants us to do that. Those people never came through and they disappeared and they never gave us a dime. But by the time we realized that we were going to have to find money from somewhere, we were already going to make it. Wow. But it came from the idea. I mean, Travon, why don't you say where the idea came from? Because it's such an amazing story.
Yeah, I mean, at that time in July of last summer, the world was protesting at that point. The world was marching for George Floyd and for all the various, names that had come up at that time, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and, Elijah McClain. And it was just name after name. And day after day, those protests were growing, and we were out there. And you come home and you see the stuff on the news every day. And I remember watching, I forget which news channel I was watching, but there was like a package of, all the names and the stories that had been, populating the protests. And I remember saying out loud, I think to Zaria, I was like, this feels like the worst version of Groundhog's Day ever, where you keep having to relive and re-internalize the pain and the emotions that you go through each time one of these stories pops up. And, by the time you're just getting through processing one of them, another one happens, and then another one happens. And so I felt like, I wonder if there's a way for us to communicate the pain of this feeling and the trauma of this feeling through film, through art, because obviously we do this because of how it connects to people and how it can have an impact and, hopefully open or change people's minds. And so when I got the idea, I went immediately and told it to Martin, and, and he pretty much picked up where that left off, and we just went off to the races to try to get it. I mean, I went off and wrote it. I wrote it in 5 days in July, and then I sent him the script, and then we started chasing money and people and any other thing we could do to get the thing made.
Wow.
Yeah. What I think is so amazing about it is, like you said just now, that you were sort of inspired by the pain and the trauma of the summer. And yet what you wrote and what you guys produced takes you through so many emotions, and it's entertaining, it's funny, and kind of hits you hard, and it's optimistic in the craziest of ways. And was that intentional? That because a lot of times when people want to talk about pain and trauma, it feels traumatic, so I was really impressed with how entertaining it was.
Yeah, I mean, I knew from the beginning, in order to tell this story and do it in a way where people paid attention, it was going to have to be in a way that wasn't, going to hit you over the head or preach to you or make you feel like, you want to turn it off. And, me being a comedy writer first, I always approach things from, what's funny? Where can I find the funny? And the thing about this particular type of story is, real life is grounded in both happiness and sadness and good and bad. And, you can be having a very happy and joyful moment and it can turn on a dime and become horror. And I use the example of, Paris in 2015, when those shootings happened and those bombings happened, people were at concerts, people were at dinner, people were having a great time. And then all of a sudden people were dying. And it's that kind of energy and that type of feeling I wanted to kind of inject into this story. But, also when I initially sat down to write it, it wasn't supposed to be what it is now, at least in the initial idea. I was thinking of something more satirical that would, really like chew up this particular idea in space. And what ended up coming out was that. And as I was writing it, it was telling me what it wanted to be. I wasn't going to force it to be a comedy or anything it didn't want to be. I wanted to tell the truth of what I felt and the truth of the story. And what you see on screen is 97% of that first draft.
That's awesome, man. Zaria, so you're one of the leads of the project. Could you kind of tell the people a bit about how you came across this great project? And also I'm curious, like, dealing with subject matter that is, obviously both dark and light. How did you process that? Because, it had to be a little surreal going through this filming while the protests were still happening over the summer.
Yes, it was definitely surreal. I think it was a big release for me. I came across this film. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't come across it. Travon and I are partners, so he wasn't very far. And so I actually didn't know that I got the part until he was on the phone with my manager, and I was like, "Wait, what?" He was like, "Yeah, you didn't know you've been walking around with the script," and I was like, "I was just gonna be ready." So I was really, really honored, and I still am honored to be able to express myself in art in this way. I think that that's my biggest relief. I think that's the reason I love being an actor, is to be able to tell stories that change people's lives for the better. And I know we talked a little bit about Hair Love, but that's how I feel about Hair Love, is that all growing up, I know I'm like shifting subjects, but growing up, I was very embarrassed about my hair. And my dad and mom were separated, so they would like comb out my dad was trying to comb out my hair, would take hours. And watching Hair Love moved me so much. So to have the response that Two Distant Strangers has, that people are just moved, all walks of life, whether you're a Black person or a white person or a police officer, I think that is the magic of storytelling, to be able to, for 30 minutes or an hour or 15 minutes or however long, you're able to take yourself out of your own shoes and put yourself in the shoes of the people that are on the screen.
Well, it did that. And it is such a gift. I watched it for the second time with my husband, and it was fun watching someone watch it, and what is amazing is how interactive it is, because I was just watching him and he's like, oh, okay, once you get into, oh, it's groundhogs. And he's like, and then actually, Zaria, when you were like, oh, I have a gun, it's like, yeah, Black women have guns, and, which you can dissect that whole statement anyway, right? But he was like, oh, I think I know what's going to happen. And he didn't say anything. And then afterwards we talked about it, and it was so, he thought that he was going to use the gun on the cop, and then it was going to get dark, and then he was going to get in jail and all that. But to create a piece of content where you're in it, and he was like, oh wait, he should have put his, like he is that character. I can't wait to show it to my kids for that reason also. So it's really something that you can share it, and you can talk about it, and you can experience it in such a kinetic way like that. It was really, really powerful.
I really enjoyed the response to the trailer when we put the trailer out, because in the trailer, the way it's cut, it looks like he only ever goes out the same front door of the building. So like every other comment was like, use a different door, dude.
When you're screaming at the screen, it's a good thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like COVID, one of the tragedies of COVID was that we didn't get that experience of watching people watch it. But in the small experiences, either over Zoom or, my mom watched it, you can see people going, just stay in the house. That's right before he does try to stay in the house. So I think Travon did a great job of writing it that way, of writing it in the way where you as an audience member are just wanting him to get home to his dog and you're shouting out solutions. And just like the real life experience, it's just not that simple.
Did you find some of it in the editing? I know you said you wrote it in 5 days, but did the editing process change the structure a lot?
Yeah, I will say the edit was incredibly imperative to the success of what you see on screen because of the nature of it being short form and the feeling it had to convey. And that is something that Martin is very responsible for.
Oh, come on. We lived in a small black box together for,
we did.
for about 6 weeks.
One of us has like 10 years experience as being an editor though.
Well, it actually speaks back to structurally, no, to be honest. I want to support wholeheartedly what Travon said. The script that he delivered, by the time we were sort of done with, there was a robust notes period. Jesse was amazing at, I know he guided a lot and we got some great feedback from a few people, but the script that Travon delivered, I think we put the bit where he FaceTimes with his dog, like we moved that a bit earlier, but otherwise the structure, part of the reason this film was shootable during COVID is the fact that, and it was shootable in such a short period of time at the level that we were able to do it, is it's like a mathematical puzzle, right? You shoot the same shots over and over again in the same spaces over and over again, and everything was in all locations within walking distance of each other pretty much. But in the edit, it was a tonal thing because, as you said, Karen, there's such a mix of tones. The movie starts off, you think it's one thing, working very hard to present itself as one thing, and then it shifts on a dime, and then it shifts back, and then where's it going to go and how's it going to build? And we initially worked around a lot of different ways of playing with that tonal stuff until we realized, should we make the cutesy bit, the romantic comedy bits, should they live cinematically and sonically in that space, and then the horror, eventually we sort of realized, no, this whole thing needs to feel as real as possible. We're not in different movies. We're just, as Travon says, we're just in different emotional experiences within the same person's life. And so that was really what the edit was all about, was nailing down the tone.
Got you. Yeah, no, the tone is such a tricky thing, with the project. And I can only imagine the time period crunch that you guys were under, because if you wrote and shot it over the summer and then you had to submit it, when did you have to submit it by? Like early fall?
No, I wrote it 5 days in July. We shot it 5 days in September. We edited it through October. We had a lock picture October 27th. And then we submitted it to the Academy December 1st.
Wow. Yeah, that's a tight turnaround, man. It's awesome though. I always think that type of work though, when there's a sense of urgency behind it, it just really has you at the top of your game. You have to heighten the senses and just be very intentional with it, which is awesome. Another question I have for you guys, obviously talking to you, Zaria, great member of the cast. You also have a great ensemble, the gentleman that played the police officer, obviously Joey, playing your lead. Like, can you talk a bit about how the casting came about? Because obviously that process is so crucial to a movie like this.
Yeah, so Andrew Howard, who plays Merc, is someone I've known for a few years, and he's just an incredibly talented person. He's in Watchmen, and he's in Perry Mason and Tenet, and you can find him just about anywhere being amazing. And when I first had an inkling of the idea, he had texted me about the protests and the marches, and he was like, if there's anything I can do to support you, or support like anything, just let me know. And it's already an interesting thing to take in. He's British and he's living in America and having this experience. And so I said, I do have something that I think you could be helpful with. And then he said yes before he even read the script or knew what it was. And then when I told him what it was, he said yes again. And then when he read the script, he was like, hell yes. And so, from there, when we were trying to cast Carter, you know, James Samuel is a good friend of mine, and last summer he was just so instrumental in helping us put this together. And you know, he's the one who connected us to James Poyser, who did our score. And you know, we were on the phone one night, and you know, he's in the middle of directing Harder They Fall for Netflix, and still like side producing our movie, like taking all my calls, helping with whatever we needed. And he's like, you know, who you need for this is Joey Badass. And I said, I think Joey's great. I don't know Joey Badass. Like, I'm trying to cast a short, and I only have like a week. Like, how am I going to get Joey Badass to do my movie? And he's like, I'll call you back. And so he calls me back with Joey on 3-way FaceTime. And somehow in between that window of time, he convinced him to do the movie because he said he would do it, and he hadn't even read the script. and I'm like, I don't know what he said to you, but he's like, Joey was like, yeah, man, I'm down. He told me like what the kind of like idea was, and I'm down to do it. I sent him the script. He was like, this is absolutely something I want to do. He came to LA 2 weeks later, and we just started, me, him, and Martin just started dialing into, you know, getting the character and like learning the character, because, you know, Joey is so charismatic and so just like laid back, and he's a rapper. He has a persona, and he has to like live up to it.
He's Mr. Badass.
Yeah, exactly. He has a big badass tattoo on his arm, and so he has to be a badass. And Carter is not Joey Badass, and so we had to de-Joey him, and he did it to perfection. I mean, he really cared. He really worked hard to get into that character, and you know, that was all. It was also helpful to have people like Zaria and Andrew around, who were used to doing this style of acting, this type of thing, where, you know, while Joey has been in some fantastic roles, they aren't big departures from who he is as a person. And this was going to require him to not come across as like you were watching Joey Badass. And so I think having 2 other actors around him who don't ever play themselves or any version of themselves helped guide him along in that. But it was such a collaborative effort, and he took it so seriously, and it was amazing to work with.
He was great. And again, I just think it's a testament to the writing, because you really knew what you wanted. And even though you only got to see a slice of like their, you know, the morning after, you really felt like there was more there. You know, it was kind of how we felt about Hair Love as well, is like we really needed to know these characters inside and out. So even though you saw a clip of it, you felt like there was so much more dimension around it, which was really shows. He was great. You mentioned your composer. Another thing is, like, when you guys do your soundtrack, I mean, I love the music, and I thought that was such a support of all the layered tones that you were talking about, from just feeling good to, you know, all of those things. I thought he really captured quickly, and he's amazing. How did you get James Poyser, and you know, how quickly did he have to write to get your score together?
So this is the thing about James Samuel, is like, if you know James Samuel, you can get anything done pretty much. And so the first day,
don't tell everyone that, he's gonna hate you.
Yeah.
The first day I told him about the movie, or literally like in the early stages of telling him what I was doing, he literally just starts rattling off things. He's like, I'm gonna get you. He's like, first you're gonna put this Jill Scott song in the movie. Then I'm gonna get Poyser from the Roots to do your score. And I'm like, James, what are you talking about? Like, how is any of this gonna happen? He goes, because I said so. And what happens? We got James Poyser to do our score. We got a brand new Jill Scott song, and like it was amazing. It was a crazy experience. But it was people who read the script or saw what we were doing and just wanted to be a part of it, wanted to help. They wanted to be a part of, you know, telling this story. And we all did this, you know, for nothing, pretty much. Like, no one really made any. We had to pay our actors because SAG made us. But I mean, everyone really just did this as a labor of love. And, you know, Poyser gave it as much attention and as much detail and as much concentration as he would give anything he was doing. And Nick Frew, our music supervisor, who was one of Martin's production partner, Dirty Robert, you know, he shepherded that whole experience along and worked with James to get the score where it was, you know, perfect for the movie. And, you know, the Bruce Hornsby song was a choice I made in the script very, very early on. And I had no idea that was even possible to get that song. I just wrote it in there because I knew I wanted it. I knew why I wanted it. And I just so happened to, I didn't want to get too far into the process and realize I was going to have to change it because it was integrated into the story. And so I just so happened to go to Bruce Hornsby's website, and at the top of it says Black Lives Matter. And I was like, this might be easier than I thought. And so I shot him an email, this like really long email, just basically begging for the song, and they gave it to us.
There was like magic in the air this year around this film. Like, honestly, I've been doing this a long time, and everybody wanted this to happen as soon as they heard it, as soon as they met Travon, as soon as they understood what it was about. Like, because it's one thing for Bruce to say, yeah, of course, use my song, but Sony's lawyers let us use it too.
Right.
And that's a deeper level of support. You know what I mean?
You want to be on the wrong side of like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this made. Like you.
I haven't thought of it like that, but yes.
That's funny. Well, look, I have a question for you, Travon, and you, Martin. So, kind of did a little mini research, for this call. Martin, I saw that you kind of worked more in the documentary space before directing this live action short. And Travon, this is your first kind of foray into directing. Want to just like talk about that process a bit, like, being a little newer to that space, obviously storytelling. Could you guys maybe talk a little bit about some of the differences? And, I know Travon, you're, more so a writer now getting into the space. Like, what were some of the challenges about kind of stepping into the director chair on something that was this, tricky, tonally? Because, you tip it one way, it could kind of go off the rails a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I came to this with, having had experience on TV sets and on shows I worked on, and, having directed 2 commercials prior to this. That was kind of like the genesis of any type of leadership, directorial experience I had in a space like this. And neither of those commercials had the scope of this. They were both like Nike ads, but they didn't require what this required. They didn't require just the massive amount of people and movement and decisions. And, because when you're doing advertising, they make all the choices for you and you basically just roll the camera. and so, this was unique in the sense of it required us to understand and know, what shots we were getting, what schedule we had to get them. And during COVID, having 2 hours less a day to shoot, and all the things that Martin is very well versed in and familiar with, and I'm only familiar with from a TV production standpoint, and which is very different than making a movie. And so I was really kind of learning the film language in terms of how to move through directing a film at the same time as trying to also make a movie I cared about and wanted to see happen a certain way. And Martin just knew how to make all those things happen. And we were on the same page all the time, but anytime I had an idea or any type of thought, he just knew what to do to make that happen, or to at least try it in the time that we had. So for me, it was a huge learning experience and very exhausting, very exhausting.
Well, I'm also curious about the dynamic, and I definitely want to hear your response too, Martin, on that. But like, typically, you get 2 directors on a project, there's like that familiarity. Okay, is one working with the actors, the other one is kind of more technical. Kind of curious about that dynamic too.
Yeah.
Up to you.
No, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, it always felt like a partnership. It never felt like, because obviously Martin is very experienced. It never felt like he was just kind of stringing me along while he did, the directing job. It was very, very much us making decisions together, like both calling shots and doing whatever needed to be done. And sometimes I would be running something and he would be off doing something else, and then vice versa, or we would always be there kind of running it together. It was very, very collaborative.
Yeah, when someone brings you a story like this, which is Travon, the Genesis thing, we were working on a totally different project. Travon and I have been writing a a romantic comedy about the last hunter-gatherer in Tanzania who spends his days hunting zebra with his dad and his evenings on Tinder, trying to hit on girls in the big city. And I'm friends with this character, and we were working on that, and then he brought this idea to me, and pretty quickly I realized, obviously I wanted to do it because I love Travon, I love the idea, and I was like, but it was very obvious to me that this was a story. Like, there's been quite a lot of times in my life where I've found my skill set in the service of someone else's story, and that's what this was for me very clearly. It wasn't my job here was not to impose my vision on Travon's. This was his soul. This was a cry of rage. This was a passionate thing that he needed to do, and he needed to do it now. And that energy was captivating, and my job was to channel it. He said at one point that one of my key jobs was to make sure that the white women kept watching. So I made sure that was that was one of my responsibilities. But like in terms of the practicalities of set, like the team that we shot with is my long-standing team that I've been all around the world with, and we've shot everything from Lena Waithe commercials for Nike to documentaries in Afghanistan and things like that. And so there was a very strong, there was a huge amount of trust there with the team. So what that allowed to do is to empower Travon to feel confident and feel that he could ask for whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. My job was always to try it, unless it was impractical or whatever. But that didn't really ever come up. And it was, we only had 5 days to shoot, ended up basically being a half-hour thing from start, which is and trying to make it cinematic and trying to, and all that. So it was extremely, we were very well prepped. We had a lot of rehearsal as well. It was the one thing that we could organize on COVID times. We only had 3 actors, and two of them live within walking distance of each other. So yeah, it was genuinely completely. I come out of theatre and spent the first 10 years of my career co-directing with my best friend. So my whole gang is a very collaborative feel. We don't have that kind of sort of top-down classical structure.
Well, no doubt. Well, I mean, look, to have somebody like Karen Toliver show you love, where she's working with probably one of the more prolific writer-director duos, and Phil Lord and Chris Miller on the latest Spider-Verse. So that's a high compliment, man.
Yeah, we're very honored. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
you. Martin, working in theater and documentaries, it sounds like you're a labor of love kind of guy. It doesn't. There's not the big payday, and obviously working on the show was a practical reason to do it in a short form. But I'm curious, just because we think about this also about short form. I mean, there's something like our short was, it was less than 10 minutes. Like people could watch it while they're waiting to go to the dentist or whatever. It was very, bite size, and there was some impact. I'm curious what you felt about, like, what is the power of the short form in and of itself, besides just having constraints of budget and time that
right.
And is it something that you would want to pursue again?
This is actually my second short film to make it this far in the Academy process. I actually had a short film 8 years ago that got nominated. It's called Buzkashi Boys. It was a live action narrative short that we shot in Kabul, following the lives of two young Afghan boys as they sort of coming of age story. I should actually give a quick shout out. Fawad just started at Oberlin College this semester, one of our stars. So that was a big day for us. But I've done quite a lot of shorts. Like you already sort of answered the question away, Karen, at the top of it, which is that I think the short form is almost the perfect encapsulation of ars gratia artist, art for the love of doing art. Like there's almost no upside to doing a short film from a financial or even a career point of view. Like literally, obviously, I'm speaking from this platform, and if we make it to the next stage, then that's not true, right? If you make a short film and it gets an Oscar nomination or a win, then yes, it's going to be extraordinarily useful for your career. But that's it. Other than that, you're doing it because you want to communicate whatever it is you want to communicate, and you want to do it in this format. Like, I truly love short films, and I've been involved in lots of them over the years. And I think that it's one of the fascinating things about this year. There's some really heavy hitting talent that's working in this arena right now, which was never traditionally the case. This case was it was always very much, either people starting or people shifting across, trying something new. But there's also, I think, the nature of the way we consume media has changed so much right now that people instinctively know that you should tell the story to the duration that it's meant to be. I think that the short format world might change in the next few years, as these things are as more hair loves become cultural phenomenon, and well deserved. I think that there didn't used to be a way to place these films, and that's radically changing. And I am 100% somebody that does it for the love of the idea, and the best ideas that have come at me tended to be in this format, and it's really that's my truth.
All right, no doubt.
Trayvon
Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
was just Trayvon's connection to it.
I'm so grateful for the short form storytelling format, because it allowed us to do this. It allows people like me who haven't had the chance to direct a film or participate in the arena of film or move from television to film in a certain way, because there's still some barrier to entry on both sides to be in this position. And I think, there's no way, there's no like real tangible way for me to just propel myself into a best picture category or a best screenplay category without a lot of work and a lot of time. And there are a lot of us who have stories we want to tell. Like Matthew, you've told so many great short form stories, and you have the idea and you could just immediately go work and do it. And I think that's the beauty of this, which is I don't have to labor over a script for a year and then be in production for a year and then hope that my story resonates or that it lands or that it connects. And this allows you to be reactionary. It allowed me to experience a global moment and respond to it. And in 9 months now we're on the shortlist for the Academy Awards. And so it, to me, like this is, I think we've done exactly what the category was made for. Or what short form content exists for, which is to propel the careers of new and upcoming filmmakers, and for people to become Barry Jenkins and Spike Lee and Martin Scorsese and Spielberg, to say like, hey guys, like we're all the big shots here, but like look at who's coming up behind us. We ain't gonna always be here. Our films will always be here, but not us. And it's like, who are we nurturing to become the future of filmmaking? And I think it's a testament to the Academy's support of student films and the student Oscars, and for continuing to support the short form categories when people a lot of times tell them to stop or take them out. And it gives people like me specifically, a Black kid from Compton, the ability to put myself in the position to become a known filmmaker, or to showcase my talent and skills, when the barrier to entry for us as people of color, as women, is just so much harder. And we don't get the feature seat at the table very often, and we don't get the feature directorial opportunities very often, aside from the handful of us who are already very well established. And so in order for us to nurture the birth of more diverse storytelling and filmmaking, you need short form content. You need short form storytelling to give people with not a lot of money, not a lot of time, the ability to showcase what they can actually do. And I'm happy that we have the opportunity to do it.
And I would just say real quick, I mean, with us, with Hair Love, the fact that they are short, you can play them in so many, like Hair Love has been shown in classrooms around the world, really. And for us, even before we got the Oscar, that was such we were already felt satisfied because we had shared it. I can't wait for more people to see your short in the same way, because I think it has that kind of power. And so, it's really important. And then, the icing on the cake would be other accolades, but it's really great that in a short time, lots of people can see it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's absolutely what we wanted to do.
And Martin, let me be a testament, man. You know, you get that nom or you win, it does change it does help. It helps a lot. Can't confirm. You know, I'm sure Karen can attest as well. But yeah, no, you know, Zaria, you know, this is kind of a question for all of you, but you know, I wanted to bring this to you first. Obviously, you know, you guys are shooting in the summer, kind of late summer. Pandemic is still kind of raging. Like, what was the experience like, you know, doing an independent project during a pandemic? Because, you know, I'm a TV director too. I've been on like the sets where you have like, you're able to do the testing every couple of days, and you know, it's like this big old kind of thing. Like, I'm curious, like, how did that translate, you know, to a smaller production? Because that's been really a big question I've been thinking about in terms of like people that maybe don't have the resources to really support it in the same way these big studios can. You know, could you maybe share your experience with that a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. So I actually had a crazy storm around this film. I was blessed enough to book 3 roles around the same time of this film. And out of all of them, besides the Netflix role, I think Two Distant Strangers was the most COVID safe that I experienced personally. And one of them I actually had to pass on because there was so much pressure to not be the one that got sick because there was no COVID insurance. So it was the pressure of the fear of COVID in general. And then it was the pressure of like, oh no, I don't want to be the one to take something that I believe in so much. So it obviously and definitely was scary because COVID is scary, but I think that Two Distant Strangers did a phenomenal job. Like, we tested so much. The tests were not WIMP tests. I mean, they were all the way up here. So it was definitely a challenge, but I, without a doubt, felt safe. And our COVID manager on set was not having it. So.
There's a pretty great documentary short that could be made about Joey Badass's hatred of the deep nasal swab testing.
Hated it.
Yeah,
we were as a tiny little production, but we had Joey and Lawrence was involved, and we had these sort of names attached early on. We took a 0. We had to, and we were the first or second week back after. We were like, we cannot allow, and there has to be a 0 risk policy. So we did full nose testing every day. We took it as seriously as we possibly could. It ended up costing us a quarter of our overall budget.
Wow.
Yeah, it was definitely like that was a stressful day. We're like, how much?
Yeah, but you know, at the end of the day, though, you know, it's better than having that negative press of like trying to get a production going and you know come back with them positives.
Yeah, we were still so heavy then, and as Travon said, we had so many. You know, we were a very diverse crew, and like we just, it wasn't even. It was we just couldn't. You know, so
yeah. You know, I totally get that. Karen, did you have anything else or?
Just about the financing. So you told us sort of the direct that you thought that you had money and you didn't. But who did come? How did you do that? And whatever you can tell us about the budget or whatever, just to kind of give us a little bit of that.
Yeah. So when we finished, when we were like, we're happy with the script, we just started having people we knew send it to anyone they knew who had money and would want to help make a film about this particular issue. And so one of our producers sent it to Kevin Durant and Mike Conley. They both gave us money. I put in my own money. Martin's company put in money on top of producing the thing. It was literally all hands on deck. One of our producers, Van Lathan, put up money, and we got Lawrence Bender got a bunch of people to we were getting it in pieces. It wasn't like someone was just like, here's $300,000 gonna make a movie. It was $10,000 here, $5,000 there, $20,000 here, and it was all just people who wanted to help us make the movie. And every name you see, from Adam McKay and Shira Piven to Damon Lindelof to all the names you see in those credits, those are just people who we went to and said, hey, like, we're making this, will you help us? And they wrote a check.
Yeah.
And they cared about what I wanted to say and the movie we wanted to make, and they didn't blink an eye. It wasn't like I didn't have to pull teeth. It was just like, hey, this is what we need in this time, and they delivered.
We had
And
two.
then
We had
come with 200 set of notes.
no notes.
No, thankfully no notes. What were you gonna say, Martin?
As I say, we had two superpowers going into this thing. Trayvon had this idea that, like, it was last summer, everybody wanted to do something. Everybody wanted to put their money where their mouth was, for want of a better phrase. And this idea had its own momentum from, like, the universe wanted this thing to happen. Because, like I said, we got that COVID bill and we didn't have enough money to shoot the film that we already had budgeted. And now we've got an extra quarter cost on top of it, and we're like, what are we supposed to do? And then somebody comes in and covers enough of it. And we had one superpower was just the idea, and the other superpower is Trayvon's charm on email. If you're the other side of an email that Trayvon wants something out of you, I pity you. I've seen what happens.
Again, given that energy and the timing of it, I'm so impressed that it doesn't have this importance kind of veil over it. It's just entertaining, and that's really what I think is the strength of the piece.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And it looks like our time is coming to a close. But I wanted to end with one last question for you guys. Obviously, this film has such a direct parallel, to the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's kind of been happening, and it's going to more than likely continue to happen. For each of you, what is the message that you want people to kind of come away from after watching this movie? Because it definitely feels like it's somewhat open-ended to interpretation, but I know all three of you may even have a different kind of answer for this, but just kind of curious with all three of you, after having somebody witness watching this movie, like, what is the takeaway you want them to have?
I would say I want people, to walk away from this film being a little more empathetic toward Black people and our experiences in this country, and to not be so, reactionary to when people are trying to express their pain to you, when people are trying to communicate what they feel, and to understand that, me telling you that I'm hurting is not an indictment of you, but if you are my fellow citizen in this country where this thing is happening, it can only stop with your help. I can't stop it on my own. And this film is proof of that in the way the story is told. And so, I hope that people watch this movie and walk away from it going, how can I continue to live in a place like this and allow this to just happen? Because what you feel for 28 minutes is what we feel for 24 hours. And so if people just come away wanting to be a little more empathetic and a little more helpful to helping us solve the problem of police violence against Black people, then I feel like we did our job.
Zaria, you have anything?
Yes. I think echoing everything that Travon said, obviously, I agree. But I also think that a big part of this film is, what can I do to help? That's how the producers came on board. That's how the directors came on board. That's how everyone came on board. Everyone said, what can I do to help? And I think that's the big message that I took away from this film, is using what you have to do something for someone that you might not see eye to eye with, someone that you maybe don't go through the same experiences with. I remember being on set when the Breonna Taylor verdict came out, and it was sad, but it was also, I was so grateful to be on set doing something. How can I help? So I think that's what I'd like people to come away with.
And Martin.
Was very wrong for the white guy to have the last word here, but I'll lean in. For me, I think, Karen, what you said then for me really touched me about our film. Like it's made to speak to people that want to be entertained. Like, the medium is the message. You don't have this doesn't have to feel like activism. This is Travon's emotional experience to what happened, communicated in a way that is funny and sad and thoughtful and moving, even if you disagree with the very fundamental and, in my opinion, of course you should agree with the statement of Black Lives Matter that's behind this thing. I think you can find something in this film, and that for me I think is the most exciting part of, for me, for this whole film, is when we get to, like, this film has had a very strange life because of COVID. We've never released it. It's only been seen right now by an extremely small number of people. And so for me, like, what I'm most excited for this film is for it to get out there into the world of people that just are looking for something to put on TV. And then this comes on, and then it communicates to them, and it communicates it in that different way. And so that's what I'm hopeful for.
Love it. All right, Karen.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much, you guys. I'm so honored to just talk to you. I'm so excited for more people to see the movie. It is eligible right now it's nominated for the live action short category. It's wonderful. So I really wish you guys the best in this voting period, and I'm sure we're going to see more great things from you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, congratulations, guys. Really root for you guys.
Thanks so much for taking
for doing this.
Hi, John.
Here.
Yeah.
Right. Peace.